Hey everyone, I'm Kloo. Welcome back to some more So Dungeon. So, bit of a sad one, because it's probably going to be the last episode for a while. Because there's not really much left for me to do. We've gone over ore farm and resource farming, and then we went through my advocation for the blacksmith, which is kind of redundant at this point, which we'll get into. And then we did boss rush. So aside from that, there's not much left of the game other than just capping out our FPH. Right now, all I'm doing is a little bit more farming, so I'm using my unfarmed comp, and I gotta say, the random ore chance really affects your FPH, so like getting it on the 2-pod that you can just clear in one hit. Because I've had FPH averaging out at 4,500, I've had it average out at 4,900, and now it's at 4,100, and I've just been watching, and it's just all to do with how many ore nodes you get, and I just think that's kind of astounding that you can get up to almost 1,000 extra FPH just from having the right ore nodes pop up in the right pods. But aside from that, obviously I still need to do a bit of grinding. I did get the Planner Gem, so that's done. I do need 2 more Crag something armors, because that is now the best comp. So I previously debated, and I strongly advocated for use of the blacksmith over a nurse comp, but that's all redundant now. The best comp is one that stacks status resistance, which I think I might have mentioned. Sad that someone else cracked it before me. I would have liked to, but I can't take credit if I didn't do it, so I didn't do it. But yeah, I have been pointed out the exact comp, and there's not much I can do with it, sadly. There are a few things I want to check out and try to science to see if we can make slight tweaks, but it might end up like the boss rush video where there's absolutely nothing I can do with it, and the best I can do is just show it off. But anyway, we'll end this, and I think the first part of this is going to go over my mining comp. Right, so first off, thanks to some good back and forth between me and a commenter, Sub-Zero, I just wanted to go over my mining comp quickly. So this is my almost max mining comp, missing, what was that, 3 geogems and uranium plating on the Thorbok pick for the janitor, but we're running 1020 ore find, and this comp is highly resource intensive, meaning there's no way to recover resources because we're not running frying pans. Thus, we will burn through all of the chef's resources in, a single short run. But if we take it over here, we'll do 10,000 credits quickly, starting from probably 10,000 mine shafts are on, good. So we'll do 10k, and we'll see how much uranium we get from this comp, and then we'll swap over to frying pans just for a quick comparison. Right, all done, so how much uranium we get? We got 256 uranium in 10,000 floors. Decent amount of other stuff, not that it really matters anymore. Wish you could use the ore as consumables for the chef. No, it makes no sense, but great to burn through them all. Anyway, so 256 uranium from 10,000 floors. I'm going to strongly assume we used all the resources. So I think he had like 80k, didn't he? So the chef now has, 1 resource left. So in contrast, I can't fire you. We get out the same comp, and we swap them all to frying pans to try and make it renewable, in a sense. I'm not going to waste uranium plating on the frying pans, though I don't think it costs much because they're only green items, right? It would only cost 10, so I guess I could to make it fair. Do I really want to? Yeah, sure, why not? I'm going to grind out a bunch of uranium afterwards anyway, so I'm going to plate them. We have enough for the pick, so might as well. This comp's slightly ahead, but it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Everyone's got geogems, uranium plating. I'm curious if the uranium would increase. It does, so 33% chance. So you'd actually be better off giving them uranium gems, maybe? Was it bump up to 35%? So it does help out. But we'll stick with the gems, because we are comparing how much ore we find more so than resources. So we'll do another 10k. So what do you reckon, higher or lower? Lower, thank God. My point is proven. So slightly less, it's about 100 different. So obviously you get more bang for your buck, but at the same point, it's the amount of credits you'd spend farming up resources just to be able to get that extra 100. Right, so here's the basis of my endgame comp. The one that was mentioned to me, let me just pull it up. Right, so the version Sub-Zero gave me, all characters have the Crystal God Shield, Evercrag Armor, the Wizard uses a Sword in Space and Time, a Crackshot Gem, and Bracelet and Claw. Owner, Bitbrand, Geogem, Soul of Ormnos, and Claw. And then the Huntresses have the Bitbrand, Copper Bracelet, Geode, and the Janitor has the Pick. And then, of course, you need the Planet Gem, the Gem of Restless, and the Gatekeeper Gem. Obviously, mine's slightly different. The Wizard having the Sword of Space and Time, I think, is redundant. Because on turns where the Wizard foretells, he can't strike with the Sword in Space and Time. But similarly, on one enemy turns, the Janitor will strike, but the Wizard won't be able to foretell. So it depends which one you prioritize. I'm prioritizing getting the procs from the Sword in Space and Time. So this guarantees that every floor we're adding one floor to warping. The Wizard with it doesn't, because whenever you cast foretell, you don't get the extra warp. Similarly, though, you don't cast foretell on turns on rounds where they're instantly cleared. Which one is quicker overall, I can see the argument for both ways, and without extensive testing, I couldn't tell you. I just prefer it this way. Everyone has reached the status threshold, so I'm not too worried about damage reduction. They're all at 50% anyway. Obviously, I'm not using the gem slot, so you could sub it in. I think, though, what do we go? Yeah, the status resist goes down, which means you'd have to plate them. You'd have to plate all three things with copper, and his crit chance is under 100. So this setup, you don't have to run the goggles on him. You can run the wraps. I'm still unsure if he ever gets to the point where he can double tap. If he does, obviously it's adding an extra floor through the Sword in Space and Time, so I think the wraps are better. The Huntresses, you'd probably want to run the Evercrag armor on them. I don't have enough copies to make it worthwhile. I only have 4, I need 2 more, so I'm just running Grease Sword. You just want to get to 100 ore find, which could be easily done by just giving them geodes instead. So with base, we're 74, give each of them 1 geode, and you'll be over 100. So I guess this would be the bare minimum. Yeah, so we're over 100. Withering's at 90%. Your 3 main guys have status resistance. So the reason I don't care about status resistance on the Huntresses, they should never be able to act. So the Janitor's going to clear, then the Wizard will clear when the Janitor can't, and obviously the Tavern Owner will clear when the Wizard foretells. Meaning at no point should the Huntresses have to take a turn. So if they have statuses, it doesn't matter. Because the way statuses work, I believe, is they only tick down during an action. At least that's the way regen works. I might be wrong. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because things like Delirium or Sleep doesn't matter, because they're just here for their passive effects. They're not here to take actions or clear, so they're just essentially stat sticks. So them suffering from all the different things doesn't really matter. Obviously, if you get to the point where they're dying from damage, that's an issue. And I would run Evercrag if I had enough, and through the Uranium Shield and 1 Copper Bracelet, so they will have 1 accessory slot spare. You can easily get to 100% on them as well. What are they at? Base anyway, 29%. We stick the Evercrag on them, 67, give them the bracelet, and all of a sudden they're over 100. And then obviously pet-wise, I've gone for the status-resistant Platypus, Patty. So 8% from there, so it's fine. That if you took it off, obviously you'd be under, so you'd be at 98, so it is important. But then likewise, I have all these gem slots free, so you could just run Uranium. Aside from that, I guess I would just run Ease. I mean, you're not going to run out of... There's nothing extra to add to this setup that benefits you in any way. The only thing you're arguing is survivability. But as a base requirement, this is all you would need. You need 1 Crackshot Gem, 1 Planet Gem, 1 Gem of Restless, 1 Gatekeeper Gem, 6 Uranium Shields, 4 Bitbrands, 1 Thorbox Pick, 1 Sword of Space and Time, obviously, and at least 3 Evercrag gear. And then obviously the Phantasmal Claw and the Copper Bracelet. You can clear. The wraps are optional. Other than that, it should be the max setup. I guess I'll itemize it further, and then we'll give it a spin. So I ended up just opting to go for gold bind. Thought might as well. So 1.51, 90% withering. We hit the ore find cap. This is the setup if you're interested. Plating again doesn't really matter. We've breached the soft caps. The only thing you could continue to improve on is that damage reduction stat. Obviously running the crystal guard, you'll cap out. You don't really need the gem slots, and if you put uranium on the Evercrag, you might get to enough. Oh no, I'd have to test it. Anyway, I will give this comp a spin. We're probably just going to start from 1 and see what it caps out at. Also, just remember you don't want the ore blocker on. You want ore nodes to spawn because it will decrease your overall rooms that you have to clear, and then everything else is turned on. Right, first bit of green. So we've averaged out at 10,146. So I did go back and start from floor 1, just to make it consistent in terms of sciencing what we're going to test. So we'll end this run, and I will swap over the sword in space and time to the wizard, put him in position 1, and see if it performs better, worse, and then we can put that to bed. Right, so the comp's exactly the same. We just swapped the wizard and janitor. Still got 100% crit and of course 100% status resistance. They're the important things. And the idea being the tavern owner shouldn't be useful anymore, because the wizard should either clear or foretell, and then this janitor will mop up the rest, pun intended. So we'll start at 1 again, and we'll come back when it's green and see if it's better or worse. Right, so we've got the average, and it's less. So it's not too shocking to me. The reason is because you're losing 1 strike every time the wizard foretells, and 1 strike is actually the most important thing. It's more important than the wizard foretelling, because it essentially is 1 animation for 2 floors. Because the damage you're doing is essentially skipping 1 floor in the future. So you really want whoever's using the sword in space and time to go first, and then the wizard have the opportunity to foretell. So unless you're setting foretell to a certain requirement, which I think I've gone over before, I don't think is the best choice, because you should just want to use foretell as soon as it's off cooldown. That's the whole point of having the huntresses. You shouldn't want to gate it behind having 4-room enemies, 3-room enemies. You want it just to go as soon as you're off cooldown, because you can't control where you're warping to. So if you warp to a single enemy floor and you have it set to only use foretell on groups of 3 or more enemies, then you're missing a turn to foretell. That's just my mindset. The last thing we have to do is obviously optimize the script, because there are a few things I need to tweak and add that are a bit more ideal that I'm not really making use of, and that should add to our high score. Because for instance, this comp should be over 10,000 as it is, but I don't have a completely optimized soda script. So we'll get to that, and that'll be it, I guess, sadly. Okay, so here's the current comp, and sorry, not comp, script. I think I'm going to do something a little bit crazy. I'm going to make a new one, for starters, because this needs to be cleaned up a lot. For instance, a lot of it is not relating to speed, so I just want to make a specific speed script. I think I actually need 2 for what I'm going to do. But as it is, obviously this top portion was for nurses, using the blacksmith for taunting, and our mining. And then this segment from here, Phantasmal Claw and just the default attack, is the stock standard, what you'd use for warping. This team threshold, obviously, because we're no longer using the blacksmith, needs to be heavily lowered so that we don't cut off foretelling. That is a big thing, considering we've lowered the healing fairy to like 25%. Foretelling should be at 25% as well. I think that's a safe-ish bracket. But for what I'm going to do, essentially I want to separate this wizard and the tavern owner so that I can sort of control another variable, and that being the ore find. So I'll set it up and then I'll explain exactly what I'm trying to do. So first off, adds core. This would be a universal script for warping. You could get rid of the cleansing if you're running status. If you're not running status, obviously you want to have the mop, so you'd leave this in. We'll get rid of it though. So it's very simple. The wizard is set to obviously foretell. Everything else can't foretell, so it doesn't matter, and only things that have the Phantasmal Claw can obviously use it. So this script is universal, and you can put it on every character who's in your warp comp. So the wizard will foretell, the janitor or whoever you set up with the Sword and Space of Time will default attack, and then everything else will be cleaned up with the claws on your wizard, or I should just say on your second and third person. What I want to do though is I want to set up a way to detect if there's a 1 or 2 unit pod, so to speak. So when there's one enemy or then a second enemy, because the janitor or whoever has your Sword of Space and Time will delete one enemy, then you'll have an ore node and another enemy. And what will try and happen is your person will use Phantasmal Claw. I want to set up so that they defend and then defaults to the person in third, who will use a basic attack over Phantasmal Claw. So let me tweak this a bit. Okay, so I've gone ahead and split the script up into 3 components. The person who has the Sword and Space of Time, the wizard, and in my case the tavern owner. This would just be whoever you run in your third slot. So the Sword and Space of Time is default attack, because that's all you want to do is constantly hit. These two though is where it gets a bit convoluted. So this is the wizard script. If your team HP is less than 25%, he's going to defend, and this is my alternative way of triggering healing fairies because of this component of the script. So what I'm doing is I've set up a way to detect if there's a ore node in a 3 enemy cluster. So in a 3 enemy cluster, your Sword and Space of Time hits, and then there's 2 enemies left. When there's 2 enemies left, you want to use a normal attack, because if you normal attack, it's a third quicker than Phantasmal Claw by going off of the wiki. So Phantasmal Claw is 21 frames, default attack is 14. Defending is 1 frame, so defend plus default attack is still quicker than Phantasmal Claw. So hence I give you this script. Right, so I've slotted in Foretell here, and this should fix it up for me. So essentially, if there's more than 2 enemies, he's going to foretell whenever he can, or clear using the Phantasmal Claw. If there's exactly 2 enemies, he's going to try and detect ore. So if there's an ore node within those 2 enemies, then he's going to default to the Tavern Owner, who will default attack, and it should be slightly quicker than the Phantasmal Claw. If they're 2 normal enemies, he will try to foretell, and if he can't foretell, he will clean up using Phantasmal Claw, because there's 2 enemies. I do have to modify this slightly, because there's one scenario that is awful, and that is if there's exactly 2 enemies and the wizard's foretell is up, it's going to cast foretell, and then the Tavern Owner is just going to default attack, leaving 1 open, and then I guess the Huntress default attacks, which would be 28 frames instead of 21, so it'd be 7 frames slower. So essentially we lose all the ground we covered. So the only way around this would be to cut out foretell on exactly 2 enemies. Okay, so that's fine. We can do team alive equals 2. So if there's exactly 2 enemies, he won't use foretell. I need the negative. If there's less than 2 enemies, so if there's only 1 enemy left, he will foretell, and then the Tavern Owner will clean up. Should theoretically save a little bit of time. Alright, my oversight. You all probably picked up on it, seeing it. This should obviously be enemy team alive greater than 2 foretell. Okay, should work now. I did save it right, yeah, cool. Yeah, we'll start one, just to see what our highest is. Alright, so to show off the script, I've just slowed down the clips. So coming up, we'll have an ore node, and you can see that the janitor attacks, the wizard defends, and then the Tavern Owner attacks again. Should happen again, and then I'll repeat it just to show it off. So this should be theoretically quicker than Phantasmal Claw. Okay, so whilst our dungeon continues to tick away in the background, I've got some more frames for us to go through. So this first frame, or animation, is from room start. They're all from room start to room finish, so the black screens. And this first one is the strike animation on a single enemy. So this is the total time it takes for you to clear 1 room, so 1 enemy room. This next one is a 2-strike room, so a 2 enemy room, and the quickest way to clear it is to strike back to back, not claw, and this is the speed. So you can see it is slower, but not a huge amount, obviously, and there's nothing you can really affect. This third one, though, is the important comparison. So this is strike into your Phantasmal Claw. So you can see it is slower. To be exact, from the end, it is what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 frames slower. If you really want to get technical, you have to obviously look at my FPS and then calculate it from there, because essentially each one of these frames, this operates in 30 frames, the game operates in 240 frames, so you really have to do math. But this is just a simple way for us to compare. So you can see single room, quickest, double room, next quickest. A room that then involves you using the Phantasmal Claw is slightly slower, but this one's the important one for my argument. So here's a 3 enemy room with a single ore node. So again, it's the same timing from the black start of a room to the black end of a room. And as you can see, it is exactly 1 frame quicker. So again, just to compare, normal to black, normal to black, with that extra frame. Just to show you that it is accurate, they are cut at the same points, so it should be completely comparable. The way I have it set up is quicker overall by only a frame, but it obviously will help in the long run. And just, I want to go over why the issue here. So the reason it's not significantly quicker is the defend animation. So you can see from the moment the janitor goes back to the moment the wizard defends, and then the tavern owner acts, is this segment. So if we were to cut it, for instance, and remove it, so the point where the janitor steps back, you could see it would be significantly quicker. It would be comparable, it should be comparable to a 2-strike room. Obviously I've cut it a bit too much, but the point is, it is quicker, even though it's a roundabout way, and it's just one thing you can control, which is a big thing in this game, because I've noticed the comparisons between, if I should go back to this, yeah, so you can see right now I'm at 9,945, so I'm under 10k, in fact we're almost to an hour, but as I've just shown, the math shows that this script should be quicker. The reason for that is obviously you can't control when your little warps appear. I forget what they're called, the lock screens that you can pick between, and obviously you can't dictate when ore appears. So you getting a certain amount of them in the hour creates that marginal difference. So it's important that we do stuff like this where we can actively compare the animation times so that we can, you know, truly decide. And I think a big thing about the wiki is it's probably factually correct, but the way they've presented it doesn't quite work. Because if you do the math between everything, you do not get this level of difference. For instance, it says the delay animation on defend, so from character to character, should be 12 frames. Meaning defend takes 1 frame, so you got, and then 12 frames to get to the next character, so that's 13 frames for the defend animation. So because of that, Phantasmal Claw is 21 and striking is 14. So it should be 14 plus 13, so we're already at 27 to another strike. This shows that that's not the case. The delay is not that significant, and striking is significantly quicker to Phantasmal Claw. I wish I should record just a room using Phantasmal Claw, but the other argument we need to go over is the use of the sword in space and time. So the sword in space and time is a net zero item, so to speak, meaning the time it takes you to clear the room is essentially refunded because you're adding 1 to your overall walk, meaning at any single room doesn't exist. That's the theoretical way to think about it. The argument that you need to then just decide on your own, I've shown which way I sit. I don't like putting the sword in space time on the wizard. It's up to you. I will put the case for both sides. So the argument for the wizard is getting back-to-back warps. So you warp, you then get a 1 enemy room, and you should cast Foretell, but for instance in this case the janitor clears it, and then you don't get Foretell into the second room. The issue here is that second room, because if that second room offers you a warp, or it offers you the possibility of a warp, you've just lost out because you didn't have a wizard in slot 1. So, that mentality means if you want to play by chance, the wizard should be quicker. If you want to control as many variables as you can, 1, you want this all script, and 2, you want the wizard separate from the sword and space and time. Because any room that is cleared instantly with the sword and space and time, so these single strike rooms, don't exist. Because you skip a room further on. In fact, it's actually a higher net positive, because at the lowest end, you are skipping a single enemy room, making it 0, net 0. At the higher end, you are skipping a multiple enemy room, where it's now a net whatever this difference in frames are. It's almost double. So that speed increase, which is something you can control, might be more significant than the chance of getting warps back to back. That's the overall decision you have to make, is whether you play the odds or you go for consistency. If you want to play the odds, stick the wizard in 1, make sure he's foretelling as soon as it's off cooldown, and then give him the sword and space of time. If you want to go for consistency, separate the 2. That's my overall argument. And I doubt I can prove my other points using just normal Soda Dungeon. Yeah, so we're definitely not getting over 10k. We might get close. I mean, this back-to-back warp should put us, 9,900. But we're not getting over 10k again. It should be probably 10 minutes. Well, we might get over 10k here. No, 900, 950. And that's all because of we haven't gotten enough ore nodes to make this difference between the frames significant. So, the only way to really do it is if I left it for, a day maybe. I left them all for a day and then we could precisely see. But theoretically, it should be quicker. And theoretically, having your sword and space and time separate from your wizard should be a higher floor rate at a consistent amount. Because you're no longer playing the odds. Other than that, there's not much else I can add to the endgame comp. It is pretty finely tuned at this point. You just want to cap out resistance, then you want to cap out ore at 100, then you can focus on withering, and then you can focus on whatever you want. Anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and if this is the last one, thank you all for checking out the whole series. Yeah.